Now, back to Miller on Sports, the show that puts pro in sports. Everything else is just talk. Brought to you by the law offices of Ron Scholes.
Joining me in studio right now, Paul Frase, former Jags defensive lineman, in studio talking about football. The Joshua Frase Foundation raises funds for medical research of myotubular myopathy. You can learn more at joshuafrase.org. It's FRASE.org. Paul, thanks so much for making some time this afternoon for us.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
And first off, as a former NFL player, you've been able to use your celebrity to get the word out more and more about myotubular myopathy. When you first began this journey, were you caught off guard by the loads of support you and your family received?
We absolutely were. We did. What happened was Joshua was born with a very, very rare muscle disorder, and he was one of 50 known cases in the world. And that in and of itself would portray that it would be very, very difficult to raise dollars and to raise interest and to raise funds for research. But I called on my friends, my wife and I called on our friends from the NFL and friends and family and all their support, and friends from Syracuse where I went to college. And boy, we just had an outpouring of love and support, and it's just been a wonderful experience. We've been able to do some incredible things in research.
And that's wonderful. I know Tom Coughlin, former Jags head coach, and as well Wayne and Dolores Weaver, they've been on board and very, very generous as well. I read an awesome line you had with First Coast News back in February. It was very moving. I quote, "I would encourage families to slow down. Joshua's life was all about relationships," end quote. What was your relationship with Joshua like?
Joshua, we were very, very fortunate in that he, cognitively, he was 100% normal kid. He loved to play PlayStation. He loved to watch The Office with me at night, and he didn't love school in particular, but he did qualify for the National Honor Society, and I had no clue how you would do that because I was never close as a high school student. But what a blessing! As hard as it was, the fact that I literally had to carry him the last 3 or 4 years of his life, and he wasn't strong enough to sit up in a wheelchair. I would have to carry him, or we'd put him in a wagon and pull him around, or I'd put him in the back of the van, take him to the Ponte Vedra High School, unload him, put him on a gurney, and the nurse would take him from classroom to classroom. We were so blessed. I was so blessed that he could put his arm around me and say, "I love you, Dad," or the same to his sister and the same to his mother. We were very fortunate.
Oh, wow. And we were talking during the break as well. During your 10-plus NFL career, you had back issues as well. Was that difficult for you, or did you just say, "Hey, I have to do this. This is for my son"?
I think that the last few years of my career were absolutely to continue to get the benefits from the NFL. Of course, I love the sport. I love the game. Played 11 years, just had wonderful experiences, and it took 10 years to get to the Super Bowl, and I was fortunate enough when Tom Coughlin traded me from here to Green Bay. Of course, we lost the Super Bowl. It was John Denver's first win, but that was kind of tough. But you know, I always, people think, oh, it takes courage, it's a tough sport. Well, my son Joshua taught me about courage, and our lives, I had no problem laying down my life. My wife and I had no problem giving everything we could to our son to give him as normal of a life as possible. He just brought an incredible amount of value to anybody that would take the time to get to know him.
Well, Paul, you pretty much answered my next question, because I was going to say, member of the National Honor Society, studied biotechnology, highest math average in his class in high school. So I'm guessing he did not get the smarts from Dad. It was more from Mom?
Absolutely not from me, more from Mom. And
okay.
we had a wonderful nurse, Linda Pajank. She was with us for 15 years while here in Jacksonville. And she was just a very intelligent person. She loved education, and it was like Joshua had a tutor for during the high school years. And of course, his other nurses that took him to school earlier on cared very much about education. So we've been very fortunate all the way through.
And Paul, last I checked, the Joshua Frase Foundation, it's raised $6 million. Is that still true? And looking forward, what are the factors coming in? Do you expect more money or more support, or what do you want over the next 5 years or so?
We're actually starting a capital campaign to raise $5 million. We have just completed a preclinical trial that has just been amazing in the results that we received through a gene therapy process. It hasn't even been announced to the medical community yet. It will be announced in Geneva on November 6th and in Portugal later in October. So what has happened through people's generosity and their love and support literally is going to save lives. I tell people, look, if we can raise, $1.5 million to $2 million over the next 18 months, we could literally save 20 to 30 lives of these young children. I think it's in Joshua's legacy is going to be very powerful, because we truly believe we're on our way, on the path to find a cure and therapies for myotubular myopathy.
Paul Frase, former Jags defensive lineman, joining us in studio. You can learn more about the Joshua Frase Foundation. You can go to joshuafrase.org. It's FRASE.org. And on Facebook, you can join the cause at Support the Joshua Frase Foundation. That's on Facebook. They've got a group, and I'll make sure I link it at Miller on Sports on Facebook. Also, Paul, let's get to some football, because it's fall time really here, and we've got football Saturday, college football, NFL is Sunday. You've just got it all. It's wonderful, and I like it. We were talking a little bit 2 weeks ago. You traveled up to New York, and you saw the Jets and the Jags. Now, who were you rooting for?
I had that question posed to me as I was traveling up by a few different people. I said, I'm rooting for the team that starts with the letter J. I thought I could be impartial. I will have to honestly tell you that I was sitting in the Jets family section. I was able to go back to my old friends at the Jets and get tickets through them. So they put me in the Jets family section. My heart, I felt like I had a foot in my gut the whole game, because I was pulling for my Jaguars. And it was tough to sit through that. It was difficult. No team that has 4 or 5 turnovers is going to have a very good chance of winning. We're always pulling for our Jags. I'm looking for exciting things, and yes, it will be a tough outing Sunday, but you never know. A few things go our way. You never know what might happen.
And you're a former defensive lineman, and it seems like for the last 3-4 seasons now, Jacksonville's been trying to establish that strong pass rush. We saw a few off seasons ago, Aaron Campbell was brought in. As a former defensive lineman, what have you seen or haven't seen from the defensive line?
They still have a little ways to go. That consistent pass rush and consistent getting in the disrupting the quarterback's train of thought, and his movement is essential in having one of those elite defenses. But I will tell you, I have been pleasantly surprised in the defense these last three weeks as compared to what I was kind of feeling in preseason. Mm-hmm. Although preseason we didn't have all the big guns ready to go, but I've been pleasantly surprised with them, and as you mentioned, they're ranked very high in the NFL, and they have a streak going right now, and hopefully they can continue the efforts and the things that they're doing on the field.
And you played defensive tackle and defensive end, but we've seen Jacksonville, and we've heard all this talk of they were oh so close, whether it was the interceptions last week or getting to Cam Newton. How close is that getting that strip sack fumble or not getting it? Is it just a matter of 1 step or 2 steps?
You may remember the Marino clock play where he was going to spike it, and he ended up throwing it over, it was on the 1 or 2 yard line, and he threw for a touchdown. Well, I was part of the Jets defense that year, and we were literally playing that game for the lead in the AFC East. I was I was about 1.5 feet from Marino's arm when he lofted that, and that's how close this game is. I could have been a hero, but I ended up being a goat because I didn't take care of business on that play. But it is a game of inches. It truly is. And it's just split seconds and inches and the ball rolling one way or the other that can make a difference in a game. Usually a game's determined by 3 or 4 big plays or turnovers.
Very interesting. Paul Frase joining us in studio, former Jags defensive lineman, right here on Miller on Sports. And you can make sure you can catch the interview on MillerOnSports.com and on Facebook at Miller on Sports. And we saw last week, quickly before we go to break, I want to mention Cam Newton because he is such a big guy, 6'5", 248. He's listed. Did you ever encounter a quarterback that big when you played?
We had, Jim Kelly was big, but he was not mobile. Marino was a large quarterback. We had some big quarterbacks. The ones I remember playing against Randall Cunningham. I'm aging myself there, but he wasn't as big. But you talk about agile and running away from the crowd there, and you see guys like a Vic or something like that. It absolutely the size with speed can make a huge difference in the play of a quarterback. And I think that's what Jacksonville has right now And the feather in their cap is they've got a quarterback that could potentially put if he could potentially put the games together, he's got the size and the speed and the ability to do some great things.
Very interesting. There he is, Paul Frase, former Jags defensive lineman. He'll join us for another segment right here in studio on Miller on Sports. We'll talk some football and much more, and about the Joshua Frase Foundation. They're trying to get in the next 2 years $1.5 to $2 million. Join the cause. Whether it's going to joshuafrase.org or on Facebook at Support the Joshua Frase Foundation, or do both. Why not? Paul Frase in studio, former Jags defensive lineman. We'll talk about a lot of things right here on Miller on Sports on Talk Radio 600 WBOB. You can always listen live at 600WBOB.com if you've got to go to work and got to be in the office or the cubicle. 600WBOB.com. Coming up, it's a Florida News Network. Florida State is off this week, but we have NASCAR coverage starting at 1 at Dover on Sunday. More Miller on Sports when we come back. Be going on.
What we're doing is we know that '96 was such a wonderful season and getting to the playoffs for the Jaguars, and this is the 15-year anniversary. So we are actually inviting some players back from that team. We almost had Morton Anderson coming in and giving us a little blooper. I actually spoke with him the other day. He's going to be away in California at that time. But what we're doing is we're coming together. Iconic Innovations and Renaissance Creative has come together to do this fundraiser, and they're going to give the proceeds to the Joshua Frase Foundation. It's going to be a reunion of the 15-year. It's a 15-year reunion of the '96 run to the playoffs for the Jaguars.
And it's very cool because it's from 5 until 8:30 p.m. at Three Forks over here at Tapestry Park, and it's going to be filmed for an hour, which will be on CW17. Then you'll open the doors, do a silent auction, kind of a meet and greet with the players, correct?
Absolutely. We're going to have about a 2-hour after hours after. What happens?
Is there an after party?
When it's a tie at the end of a game. Come on, they're going to overtime. Hello! I only played 20 years of football in my entire life, right? And basketball and soccer and whatever else. Yeah, we're having an overtime, opening up the bar at Three Forks and inviting an extra 100 people in to join us to meet and greet, rub elbows with the old players. And when I say old, I've got gray hair and I'm losing hair, so you're gonna meet a bunch of us, and of course Dave Whitell doesn't have any hair, so but he's going to be there to join us, and a bunch of the local guys. We're bringing in some guys from out of town too.
That's excellent. November 6th, that'll be at Three Forks, and you'll have more at the joshuafrase.org and everything about this.
Yes, there'll be a link on the joshuafrase.org for the '96 Season of Miracles, the run of the playoffs.
Wonderful, and I remember that like it was yesterday. I remember all those games. I remember being at the stadium when y'all returned. What was the greatest part about that playoff run, about that season? What was the best?
It was really incredible. Seriously, you mentioned returning to the stadium at 1 o'clock in the morning and seeing over 40,000 fans there. Coming back from that win against Denver. What an incredible feeling as for an old player on a new franchise. That was my 9th year in the league. But quite frankly, when you look at some of we had to win 5 straight to get into the playoffs, and of course we had to have one of the best, most prolific kickers of the NFL history of the NFL miss a chip shot, and we get in, and then we win a few more games. Jeff Loggeman and I had been at the Jets for 6 years. We together. I was there 7 years. He came in a year behind me. We went to 1 playoff game in that entire stretch. Mm-hmm. When he and I were walking off the field in Buffalo after that win, we just looked at each other like, wow, this is what it's supposed to be like. And what fans have to realize is it is difficult to get to the playoffs year in and year out. And when you get there, you have to make the most of of it. So hang in there for our Jags, because obviously we all want them to have a championship. We've just got to keep supporting them and backing them.
He's Paul Frase, former Jags defensive lineman, joining Miller on Sports. And you talk about all the memories and everything with the team, but for 15 years, you had Joshua, one of your best friends. Every day was a blessing. What was the most important lesson you learned with Joshua?
Just perseverance and courage. He never once, I'm telling you, in 15 years, almost 16 years, I never heard him complain of his situation. Mm-hmm. And I can just think of having a hangnail or having a hurt ankle or hurt this or that. I know I would feel sorry for myself and complain. But that young man, through all the pain, we had 18-day stays right here at Wilson's Hospital where we literally were told we were going to lose him. I had one day we had to revive him, bring him into the hospital. We fell asleep. At 2 o'clock in the morning, he wakes me up, and he looks at me all bright-eyed, and he says, "Hey, Dad." And I'm like, "Well, hey, Josh, what's going on?" He says, "Dad, I'm glad I'm still here." And I'm like, "Well, I'm glad you're still here too, Josh." And he says, "Yeah, but I'm glad I didn't die today." And I was like, "Josh, I'm dumbfounded at this point." I'm like, "Josh, I'm glad you didn't die either." I said, "But you know, someday we all will." He says, "Yeah, but not until I'm old like Nana." Well, Nana was 73 or 74 at that time, and she's still doing well. So you talk about the lessons in life that we can learn from our children, and then especially children like Josh. Keep your eyes and ears open, because you'll miss it if you don't.
Well, Paul, it's interesting you bring that about, and you talk about Joshua and all the stories and the interviews I've seen you do over the last couple years or so. It felt like the same thing when Richard Collier was here in studio about 2 weeks ago, and he just had this smile on his face. Here he underwent something very tragic 3 years ago, unable to walk, but he stood at his wedding. He came in here, smile on his face, he's signing autographs, he's taking photos with everybody, and that is a key. Every day is a blessing, and don't think that it's just going to be here tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So you need to enjoy every little bit. Paul Frase joining us in studio. Check it out, the Joshua Frase Foundation. To learn more, joshuafrase.org. It's FRASE.org, or find them on Facebook and support the Joshua Frase Foundation, and that's their group. And back to football, because I'm just very interested. I remember that season like it was yesterday, 96 all over again. I need to know about Tom Coughlin, because everybody says he's just so hard-nosed, he's very time-oriented. If you're early, you've got to be 20 minutes early and not 5 minutes early. Was he as tough as everybody says he was?
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to have to bring it back to the foundation side. Tom Coughlin on the football field, from a 8-year veteran's perspective, seeing a college coach come in here and rule with an iron fist, Tom Coughlin was a jerk. Okay, well, let me tell you something. Allison and I had the opportunity of meeting him during that 18-day stay. He and Judy Coughlin came into that room, that hospital room, with us, and they sat with us for hours. We didn't talk football, we just talked life. And you talk about a caring individual. We didn't experience it on the field, because he ate, drank, and slept football, and that was it. And if it didn't pertain to football, forget it. Don't even bring it up. But when we got Tom, when we were able to meet Tom and Judy off the field, and one-on-one, what an incredibly caring family they are. So I was very blessed to get to meet Tom from both sides.
And have you had an opportunity since then to talk not just football, but about life since Joshua?
Well, about the 96 season, we were all joking, Don, Dave, and myself. There was a couple other guys standing with Tom at one of the J Fund events here in Jacksonville, and Tom was joking. He said, "I had all you guys on the same page, and that's what you have to do to win in this league. Everybody has to be thinking the same thing." And we're like, "Well, what the heck did you have us thinking?" He says, "You all hated the head coach." We're like, "No, we didn't. We just may have disliked you a little bit on the field." But yeah, Tom has just been very supportive of the foundation. He and Judy, actually, the year that they were on kind of hiatus when they left the Jaguars, he and Judy came up and joined us for our big fundraiser that we have in Boston. And he's really blessed us with his involvement with our foundation. And we love to help support the J Fund and the things they do here in the community for families afflicted with cancer.
That's great to hear. One of my all-time favorite stories, I believe it was either the 95 or 96 season, and it was training camp, and I went to camp with my grandfather, and I was there with a couple friends. I think it was 2 or 3 friends, and we all went. It was just, let's watch football. Let's see how the Jags are going to do. And I remember standing there with an autograph book or the training camp schedule and handing it to Tom Coughlin. He signed it, and I was excited. I was smiling ear to ear. And then I went around because I wanted to get maybe Natron Means or somebody else's autograph. Well, Tom Coughlin walked by again, and he signed it again. And I said, "Coach Coughlin, you already signed it." And he just kind of smiled, and he said, "All right, kid." And he just kept walking. And it's one of the memories that always stays with me, that no matter how many times people say, Tom Coughlin, he's hard-nosed, this, that, and the other, I always remember that in the end, he's just a nice guy. He's just a nice individual.
I think you find that, when you go through the years. When I was with the Jets, Joe Namath was just an icon, of course, and still is. And I was just a little rookie, and I was starting a few games. And Joe Namath came up to me at an event and walked all the way across the room and came to me and shook my hand and said, "Paul, Joe Namath, nice to see you. You're doing a good job." And I'm like, "What?" Well, that's how these people are. You know, they're very approachable. A lot of times we're focused on the task at hand, but that's what's so important about the NFL and things they can do for the public and the community. Keep supporting the team here because we want to see them here for years and years to come.
Loved it. I hope you did as well. Paul Frase, former Jags defensive lineman, in studio. To learn more, joshuafrase.org, Frase.org, and on Facebook. Support the Joshua Frase Foundation. Paul, thanks so much, and if there's anything I can do to help, just let me know.
This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Paul Frase in studio. We'll talk college football, Major League Baseball. Playoffs start tonight, and